And though 2012 and the Kali Yuga are palatably removed enough for us to muse on, everything changes when we dare say apocalypse. To have the vision of Babylon drunk on the blood of the saints is one thing. To see the West become a battlefield strewn with the corpses of your own family and friends is quite another. If you're working already with a corpse or death posture meditation, it may be worth broadening your focus out from your own body and trying to experience this battlefield meditation to see the effect it has on your consciousness. This is magic not in the abstract, but magic as a deeply personal and relevant experience. To place these ideas in context, I want to look at the Enochian magic of John Dee and see how that dovetails with our Western tradition of both revelation and apocalypse. Because Enochian is often seen as a very abstract and complicated system, something which is reserved for the advanced magician. When what Dee was actually doing was a very gritty and driven attempt to navigate through a world which was in utter crisis. And it is the world of Dee which we have inherited today. We cannot hope to really understand or really perform Enochian magic unless we realise that it is profoundly apocalyptic in both its conception and its action. And Dee had many very unwelcome visions. This is one from the angel Murithru. The earth laboureth the sick, yea, sick unto death. The waters pour forth weepings, and have not sufficient moisture to quench their own sorrows. The air withereth, for her heat is infected. The fire consumeth, and is scalded with his own heat. The bodies above us are ready to say, we are weary of our courses. Nature would fain creep again into the bosom of her gracious master. Darkness is now heavy, and sinketh down together. She hath builded herself, yea, I say, she hath advanced herself into a mighty building. She saith, have done, for I am ready to receive my burden. Hell itself is weary of earth. For why? The son of darkness cometh now to challenge his right, and seeing all things prepared and provided, desireth to establish himself a kingdom, saying, we are not strong enough. Let us now build a kingdom upon earth, and now establish that which we could not confirm above. The Middle Ages which were behind these visions were apocalyptic times. The Black Death of the 1400s killed 50% of the European population in 4 extremely grim years. With bodies in the streets, people believed it was the end of the world. Highborn and lowborn, saints and sinners, all alike were stricken, and faith itself staggered under the impact. Despite blaming and burning the Jews for terrorist attacks on the wells, the plague raged unabated, stalking Europe until the 1700s, with the Great Plague of London occurring in the numerologically correct 1666. Feudal society was breaking up. War was endemic. America had been discovered again, and everything was molten in the crucible. The events on earth were marked by a turmoil in the heavens. The Greek word disaster literally means bad star. The planets, as the angel Murifiri said, were weary of their courses. The events which were to come fulfilled for many the biblical prophecy of Luke 21 to 25, which heralded the return of Christ, stating, "And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity and seas and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the power of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and glory." There's very much a sense in the Middle Ages that Jesus was going to turn up, and soon. On November the 11th, 1572, the astronomer Tycho Brahe saw something amazing with his naked eyes. A new star had flamed into life in the constellation of Cassiopeia. And for 2 weeks, this star could be seen in broad daylight. At the end of November, it began to fade, changing colour from bright white to yellow to orange to a faint reddish light, and finally fading from the night skies after 16 months. The significance was that the only star to ever appear like this before was the Star of Bethlehem. Johannes Kepler describes the event as like an enemy storming the town and breaking into the marketplace before the citizens are aware of his approach. It is a secret and hostile eruption. Scientific thinking fell apart. The events meant the stars were not fixed in their solid concentric orbs. Neither was this a predictable and mechanical universe. John Dee saw this star, and though for him it strengthened the heliocentric ideas of Copernicus. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's very much
For Dee it was also very much a sign of the imminent apocalypse, and it was a view shared by both the masses and the intelligentsia. To give an idea of the apocalyptic fear, Revelations itself was printed 750 times between 1498 and 1650, as people desperately tried to make sense of the events. And worse was to follow for the world of the Middle Ages. A baleful comet in 1577 appeared. Tycho Brahe determined the comet was in the sphere of Venus and saw it as a harbinger of warfare, of pestilence, of extremes of heat and cold, and changes in religion. His student Johannes Kepler said it predicted the appearance in the north of Europe of a prince who would lay waste all of Germany and vanish in 1632. And Kepler's prophecy was fulfilled with eerie precision, with Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden unleashing the 30 Years' War and dying in timely fashion in 1632. The scientific significance of the comet was it showed that it was above the lunar sphere and not a meteorological phenomenon as people thought comets were. John Dee himself spent 3 days counselling Queen Elizabeth on the matter and explaining the comet's meaning. And it seems likely that this was when the lunar Venusian cult of Elizabeth began in earnest. But Elizabeth, the virgin whore with red hair, decked with pearls and gold and precious stones, seems rather more reminiscent of another figure in Revelations that Dee never quite acknowledged. It was not simply these stellar crises which were unnerving Europe, but it was the social, religious and the environmental upheaval which pushed Dee into his angelic magic and the riddling symbolic language of the biblical prophets, and in particular Revelations. In 1581, Dee began his work with Edward Kelly, and the nature of the work was richly apocalyptic. When Kelly has his vision of the watchtowers are the colours of the four horsemen in the Apocalypse of John.